Howdy SEO Moz, welcome to another edition of Whiteboard Friday. Today we're going to be talking about negative ranking factors. Now we talk about ranking factors here a lot at SEO Moz. Every 2 years SEO Moz publishes a study called the ranking factors. We just published one about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. And the positive factors get a lot of publicity. We find things that correlate to higher rankings and we spend a lot of our time on those. And some of the more positive famous ranking factors that we talk about are such things as page authority, which has a 0.28 correlation to higher rankings. Now, I know we say this a lot, but I need to give my disclaimer here that correlation does not equal causation. What this means is that when we see pages with high page authority, they're most likely associated with higher rankings. We look at thousands of search results across the website when we analyze those pages, and we try to find relationships, characteristics of those pages and those higher rankings. And when we find a relationship, we often say that they're positively correlated. Other elements that have positive correlation would be exactmatch.com domains. So if your domain name is, say, diamonds.com, you've got a pretty good chance of ranking for diamonds for that keyword. And also linking root domains with partial anchor text has a 0.25 correlation. And that just means the broad diversity of domains that link to you with some sort of partial anchor text. There's a pretty high correlation between that measurement and higher rankings. Now this is what we talk about a lot, but what we don't talk a lot about is the opposite effect, the negative correlation. And there's certain factors, there's certain things we find associated with web page that actually are associated with negative rankings. And we don't pay a lot of attention to those, but they're actually in there in the ranking factors and they're all the way at the bottom, but they're sort of worth paying attention to because if we can avoid these, we might be able to learn something about better ranking models and better correlations. So, starting with some simple ones, an obvious negative correlation is the domain name length, 0.07. This is kind of an obvious one. So if you had a domain shoes.com, this tends to rank better in search results than something like buycheapmenshoes.com. Now again, correlation doesn't equal causation. We can think of a lot of reasons for this, right? For example, shoes.com, that's probably a much older domain name. It's probably been around for 10 years, has a lot of backlinks going to it. Buycheapmenshoes.com kind of looks a little spammy. It's probably not something that's going to earn a lot of links. And by the way, if you go ahead and look at these correlation statistics, dashes actually are another negative factor. The more hyphens a domain name has it, that's actually another negative correlation factor. Now that doesn't mean you can't use long domain names. It just means they tend to not do as well, from what we observe. Kind of a controversial one here, response time. We love drawing small pictures of animals here on Whiteboard Friday, so here's our tortoise and our hare, 0.05. Now, we don't really know what this is. There's a lot of debate in the SEO world if slower web pages, slower servers cause lower rankings. And we don't really have a lot of data on that. We don't really have a definite answer. But what we can see from the correlation, this isn't a huge correlation, but we see that these pages tend to rank, a little lower than others. And we know that faster websites, faster response times, present a better user experience. So it's definitely, if you have a slow site, it's definitely worth looking into. Now here's a surprising one. There's a lot of people who think there's people getting new into SEO. They think that if you use Google services, such as installing Google Analytics in your site or putting AdSense on your site, that Google tends to favor those websites and that you'll rank higher. But correlation data shows exactly the opposite. Google AdSense slots correlated with lower rankings, 0.06. So website A here, if it has all these AdSense, and you've seen these pages, you click on them and they're filled with AdSense, they tend to not rank as well as pages with fewer AdSense slots. Another thing is the number of pixels. So not only the amount of slots that you have, but the pure amount of volume of space on your website that's taken up by AdSense, we see those associated with lower rankings. Again, doesn't necessarily cause it, but that's what we see. And as a user, if you think about it, which page would you rather link to? I mean, both things being equal, I'd much rather link to that page. So it sort of makes sense. The most surprising result of this year's correlation data was the percent of followed linking pages. And this requires a little bit of explanation. This means that if all your links pointing towards your domain are followed, we tend to see those sites ranking a little lower. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense off the get-go. You'd think if all your links were followed, you'd just be great in rankings, but think of domain diversity. Sites that rank well tend to have a lot of sites linking to them. They have sites like Wikipedia that have no followed links. Citations, no followed links. In general, they have a diverse link profile, whereas spammier sites, smaller sites, newer sites, they're going after those links. They have to work very hard for each one of them, and their diversity is not as great. So these are only a few of the negative ranking factors that you'll find in this year's 2011 SEO Moz ranking factors. You can dig into it. We'll link to it in the bottom of this post and explore your own. It's worth looking into all of them. You can learn so much SEO. Love to hear your comments. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.